For more, we turn to investigative journalist and author of the Guantanamo Files, Andy Worthington. Thank you for joining us, Andy.
You're welcome. Hello.
Andy, I want to just start off just answering a basic question from the last package. What exactly is a black site, and how is that different from a normal military base installation where some sort of detainees are held?
Well, the military is holding its own prisoners at Guantanamo, and has done so at other sites. The black sites were set up by the CIA, and the initial one was in Thailand, which was run for some of the time there by Gina Haspel, and there were also black sites in other places. And for a 6-month period from the fall of 2003 to the spring of 2004, we have good reason to understand that there was a black site within Guantanamo. So not run by the US military, but run by the CIA instead.
So what is the chain of command for these black sites? Is it just strictly within the CIA and the intelligence arm of the Justice Department, or does it have any sort of communication with the Department of Defense and the Pentagon?
Well, it's difficult to know, really, with this, because not everything was transparent about what the Bush administration did. I would say that, what we know, really, is that Donald Rumsfeld ran the military side of things, and Dick Cheney, as the vice president, had a lot of influence over what the CIA were up to. But, the most significant thing about this story is that here we have, this claim that Gina Haspel, in one of the gaps in her resume, was running the torture site that was in place at Guantanamo, making even more, more disturbing the fact that she was confirmed as the CIA director. Because when the Senate Intelligence Committee report into the CIA torture program thoroughly repudiated it on every level, what really should have happened as a result of that is that the CIA should very much have stepped back from having anything to do with what took place in those years, instead of actually getting a director who was very deeply involved in this thoroughly discredited torture program. It's actually really, profoundly disgraceful, actually, that somebody so intimately involved in the torture program ended up as the boss.
Well, that's my question for you, Andy. When it comes to torture in this area, do you think that everything that went on in these black sites should be revealed and made public? All the details should be made public? And does that actually help the war on terror? Does it actually hurt the United States in trying to protect what their interests are in this?
Well, no, I mean, everything that's happened, has been thoroughly repudiated. As I mentioned, the Senate torture report, we only got the unclassified summary, and that was partly redacted. The executive summary, we got that, which was less than 10% of the total report. That absolutely confirmed that it had been counterproductive, it had been more brutal than even the torture techniques that were sanctioned, and that it was not something that should have happened. There was no good use for it. And seeing the whole of the report, which we never have done, would help us to understand what has happened, would help us to make sure that the same mistakes don't happen again. I think that remains something, of extremely great importance.
So my question for you is, going forward, since there are still 40 detainees at Guantanamo Bay today, what is the rule of law in regards to trying to extract information from these possible terrorists and making sure, in regards to what's going on right now with the war on terror in the Middle East, as well as keeping the American citizens safe? What is the rule of law that should be used in handling those types of questioning?
Well, there are the 40 men that are held in Guantanamo. None of them are of any use for intelligence purposes now. Really, your intelligence value expires a few weeks after capture, when you're no longer part of anything that's taking place. It's absolutely absurd that they should still be held there. For the handful of men who are involved in the pre-trial processes, the system there doesn't work, and it would be much better if that happened in federal court. For everybody else, people who really want to look at this story should understand that there is no good reason for these men to be held. Had they been held as prisoners of war, I think that it would have been litigated by now that there was no good reason for continuing to hold them. But as it is, the American people really need to understand these people have no way out of Guantanamo under any circumstances, no legal way out of Guantanamo. They are the prisoners of the President of the United States and to some extent of Congress. And the only way they are ever going to leave that prison is if the President wants them to. The President doesn't want them to. 5 of the 40 men were approved for release by high-level government review processes under President Obama. Donald Trump doesn't care. 26 other men were, it was decided under Obama investigating their cases, these men were too dangerous to release, but not enough evidence existed to put them on trial. That throws serious doubt on the nature of the so-called evidence.
But
Obama set up a parole-type process to review their cases. That has kind of ground to a halt under Donald Trump.
Andy, but that's the thing. But Obama was letting people go. You saw Bush also was putting people. We have, according to the Office of Director of National Intelligence, 30% or 222 former Gitmo detainees are back in the war zones right now going against United States intelligence. Isn't it better to be safe than sorry?
No, it's better to believe in justice and to practice justice rather than to carry on something which is essentially arbitrary imprisonment of the nature, the kind that is something that dictatorships practice and not countries like America that claim to respect the rule of law.
Well, we will continue to see as obviously we continue to go into the depths of Guantanamo Bay and the actions that were there. Thanks for joining us, Andy.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.